Now, in Lesson 4 of Module 1, your final lesson, I'd like to talk to you about motivation, mission, and goals. In order for you to maintain an elevated state create in three-dimensional reality, we said in the introduction that it's going to take time, it's going to take energy, you have to pay attention to what you're doing, and it takes a certain amount of awareness. So then, when we create from three-dimensional reality, we become aware that we're in lack of something that we want, and we're at one point of consciousness, and we put our awareness or our consciousness on another point. That would be the experience that we want. And the separation between those 2 points of consciousness creates time. And in order for us to arrive at that vision or goal, we have to do a lot of things, and that takes a lot of energy. So we have to keep our attention on that vision, and we have to stay conscious and aware so we don't go unconscious and default back to that old personality, that personality of lack. So the ingredients then that create that are an elevated state. The excitement about your vision, the excitement about your dream, the inspiration to have an abundant life, the optimism to look forward to that new experience, the enthusiasm and theos filled with God that drives you to do the right things, and ultimately the motivation to get there. Now, let's talk about motivation. I've discovered that there's 5 types of motivation, and I want you to think of motivation in terms of the highest form of motivation to the lowest form of motivation. And the highest form of motivation tends to be the most selfless form of motivation. The lowest form of motivation tends to be the most selfish form of motivation. So let's talk about the highest form. We call this purpose motivation or duty motivation or mission motivation. This is having a vision or an idea or a purpose that's bigger than us, in some way changing other lives, making a difference, or contributing to the world. It's a great reason to get out of bed when we have something that's bigger than us, that's a vision. Now, the next form of motivation is called personal conviction motivation. These are people that are self-starters. These are people that say, I'm going to do this, and when they say they're going to do it, they actually do it. And it takes will, and it takes perseverance, and it takes discipline, and it takes determination to maintain a certain degree of personal conviction. We have to stay consistent with what we're doing. We have to stay focused. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to challenge ourselves. And primarily, we have to get our behaviors to match our intentions in order to arrive or create a new experience. Now, personal conviction motivation is not the highest form of motivation, but people who have purpose motivation or mission motivation naturally have personal conviction. It kind of falls right in line. The next form of motivation is called ethics motivation, or what we call morality-based motivation. This is based on polarity. It's good and bad. It's right and wrong. It's success and failure. Not the highest form of motivation, but people who have purpose or mission motivation naturally have personal conviction and naturally have a sense of ethics and morality to navigate in their life. The next form of motivation is called ego motivation or self-aggrandizement motivation. This has everything to do with recognition, popularity, and fame. Not a very high form of motivation, but people who have a mission, who have personal conviction, have a sense of ethics and morality, naturally get the recognition, the popularity, and fame. It's the side effect of their purpose and mission. The lowest form of motivation, the most selfish form of motivation, and that's called money motivation. If a person has a mission and a purpose, and they demonstrate personal conviction, they get their behaviors to match their intentions, they hold themselves accountable, they have a sense of ethics and morality, and they navigate properly in their life, they get the recognition they need. The money is always the side effect of this natural flow. Now, think about purpose or mission as something that's infinite. There's never an end. It's ongoing. It's a direction. Now, let's talk about this in more detail. As an example, you can have a purpose to go east, and there's never an end to going east. It's ongoing. You can have a purpose or a mission to be healthy, and there's always more health to arrive at. You can have a mission or a purpose to be abundant and to contribute and make a difference in the world, and there's never an end to abundance. And you can have a mission or a purpose to gain knowledge, and there's never an end to the knowledge that we can gain. So think about mission or purpose as something that's ongoing, a direction. So then, if you can set up goals in alignment with your mission or your purpose, the mission then of going towards your health or going towards your abundance, the goals that we set for ourselves keep us in line or keep us on purpose. And so you can set up several goals, and as you arrive at your goals, as you arrive at those goals, it means that in some way you're staying on purpose. So then if you can get your behaviors to match your intentions, you can get your actions equal to your thoughts, you can get your mind and body working together, you will create a new experience, and that new experience will produce a feeling or an emotion. And if you can do it over and over again and stay consistent with it, you will arrive at the next goal. And then when you arrive at that next goal, it tells you that you've been on purpose, and you can continue getting your behaviors to match your intentions and arrive at the goal after that. And on we go. So then here's an example. Let's say that your purpose is to be healthy. So your first goal would be to exercise every day for 20 minutes for 2 weeks. If you did that every single day, that would mean that you are on purpose towards you arriving at your goal of being healthy. The next goal could be only eat fresh foods, eat less, and avoid sugar. And you may want to do that after you've exercised 20 minutes every day for 2 weeks. That's the next goal. And if you were able to do that for a period of time, your next goal would be to lose 20 pounds. Once again, you'd have to do a lot of things and get your behaviors to match your intentions. And if you do that well, you'll lose that 20 pounds, and now you know that you're arriving further down the road towards health. Your next goal could be to get a new wardrobe and to buy new clothes. If you finally arrive at that goal, then it could be then that you want to run a half marathon. That could be a goal further down the road. And if you run the half marathon then and you begin to change, you may be ready for a healthy relationship. The key thing is that we set up goals to keep us on purpose, to allow us to know that our feedback, what we're creating, tells us that we're arriving further down the line of our mission or our purpose. Now let's look at the purpose or mission of being abundant. You may want to have your first goal in creating or saving $10,000. Once you arrive at that goal, you may want to finally start that new business that you've been dreaming about. Once you start the new business and you get the license and you get everything organized, the next thing you may want to do is attend a 3-day event on the technology to be able to market your company or your business. And then you would develop a website and social media accounts. And now all along now, each one of these goals is keeping you headed towards that final end of becoming more abundant. You could host a new podcast, and once again, that's another goal that you can arrive at. You can recruit and hire and train a new staff. That would be another goal to keep you on purpose for that place of abundance. And ultimately, you can make $1 million in revenue. That could be another goal. And then your long-term goal, your final goal would be to sell the company for $10 million in 5 years. And that would be your plan or your strategy. That would be the tactics you would take. Each one of these goals then allows you to stay on purpose. That means you have to make the choices consistent with each one of these goals daily on a regular basis. So then, what are the ingredients for a personality to arrive at specific goals? There are 3 things that I believe that creates excellence in an individual. Number 1 is getting very clear on what your purpose is. Remember, purpose is ongoing. Once you have your purpose clear in mind, there's got to be 2 things then, 2 ingredients that keep you on purpose. And one of them is what I call competence. And competence is mastering whatever it is that you do. Doing it enough times that it becomes second nature to you, that you know how to do something. It's mastering your craft. It's becoming skilled. The last ingredient is called accountability. And that means if you say you're going to do something or you're asked to do something, you actually do it. And if you're accountable and you're competent and you have purpose, now you have excellence in an individual, and somehow you stay on purpose and arrive at those goals. Now, think about this. Our goals keep us in alignment for us to arrive at our outcome. So we have the personality of lack, and we have the personal reality of lack. Here's the personality of abundance, and here's the new personal reality of abundance. In order for us to create from three-dimensional reality, we have to have that vision, that mission, and that purpose, and we have to set up our goals in alignment with arriving at that particular reality. Now, let's use this as an example. Let's say that you're strategizing on how to arrive closer to that reality of abundance. In three-dimensional reality, you have to do things and you have to set goals. So let's say your first goal is to wake up early and create your to-do list. After you do that for a period of time, the next goal would be to meditate daily for 1 month on your future. Once you do that for a period of time, your next goal would be to learn and become an expert in your vision, whatever it is that you're using as a vehicle to become abundant. It's important for you to become an expert. Once you become an expert and you learn everything there is about your abundant life, the craft or the skill you're going to be demonstrating, your next goal is to network with the right people. Once you network with the right people, your next goal is to create the opportunities for you to step into that successful future. And then finally, it's to create more revenue so that you have the means to be able to do whatever you want. So let's look at this, because there is a reality where you have to overcome your environment. That's the circumstances and conditions that are connected to certain people, certain objects, certain things at certain times and places. We have to overcome our body. That means our emotions, our habits, and our drives. And we have to find the time to actually create. So if our environment is controlling how we think, act, and feel, then our personal reality is creating our personality. And that's what most people experience. So your first goal is to wake up early every morning and to create your to-do list. You remind yourself that you're going to do that before you go to bed at night. And all of a sudden now, here comes the morning, and you wake up with a headache, you have lack of sleep, you feel tired, and you're running late. And there's every reason for you to abandon this goal and not do your to-do list. But if you remember what the personality of abundance is, and you have all the information about what those traits are, you could say then, I got to stay creative. A personality of abundance is a visionary. They stay inspired no matter what. They're practical, and they have the energy and passion to keep their vision and their goals alive. Okay, so I'm going to remember to get up and become that personality of abundance. And if I actually make the time to do my to-do list, I would be overcoming the personality of lack. The personality that thinks equal to their feelings, that has the inability to manage their time, that is lazy, that makes excuses, and has no energy. In other words, if you choose to do it in spite of waking up with a headache, having a lack of sleep, feeling tired, and running late, overcoming your body, overcoming your environment, by doing it, just the act of doing it means that you can think greater than your feelings, you can manage your time, you're overcoming your laziness, you're overcoming excuses, and you're overcoming the idea that you don't have enough energy. If you actually choose that and you show up, we could say then, in that moment, you're in a different timeline. You're no longer in this timeline of lack. Now, let's say your next goal is to meditate daily for 1 month on your future. But remember, you got to be greater than your environment, you got to be greater than your body, and you got to be greater than time. Now, provoked by a coworker the day before, you got your car dented, you were stuck in traffic, and you got home late, and you're not feeling good. You have every reason to not meditate that day. But if you remind yourself of the personality of abundance, you'd have to become that person by remembering that you would maintain order in chaos, that an abundant person is purpose-driven, that they're emotionally intelligent, that they're resilient in the face of adversity, and they're greater than their environment. By you choosing to meditate that day, you would be overcoming the personality of lack. And you overcame and became, now you would be on a different timeline, a whole different future than the future of living in the personality of lack and the personal reality of lack, just by choosing yourself. If your next goal is to learn and become an expert on your vision, and you have to make time to learn and become an expert, but you have a family member that's admitted to the hospital, you got injured in the gym, your property taxes and bills went up, it's very easy for you to get discouraged about your vision and not choose yourself to learn and become an expert. But if you remember the personality of abundance, and you have to become that person, and remember the qualities and characteristics, that person is grateful. That person is persistent and determined. They maintain that vision in spite of their environment, what's happening in their life. They thrive in the discomfort, and they love challenges. If you took on that personality of abundance by showing up and learning in spite of all of these things, you would be overcoming the personality of lack. The personality that blames, that sabotages their goals, that obsesses on problems and pain, and never has enough time, and procrastinates. And if you actually made the time to learn and become an expert in your vision, in spite of your body, in spite of your environment and time, you would be on a different timeline and headed to a different future. All along, you're changing in the process. Your next goal is to network with the right people, but you have challenges in your life. There's a breakup in a relationship or a divorce. You get a pay cut at work. You have to take care of your parents in three-dimensional reality and space-time. And you have every reason to not make time to network with the right people. And you'd have to remember the qualities and characteristics of becoming an abundant person. And what was that personality? They create their own path. They learn and apply. They lead by example. They embrace change. And they're conscious and self-aware. That would be the person that you would want to become by choosing to network with the right people and making the time to do it. And by the same means, you would be overcoming the personality of lack. You would be overcoming the victim mentality where you're controlled by your environment. You would overcome complaining. You would overcome chronically disbelieving and becoming too self-involved to actually make time to network. And if you made the time to do it, and you actually got your behaviors to match your intentions, and you arrived at that goal, and you were able to do it consistently, you would be on a different timeline, no longer in the timeline of lack, in that personal reality of lack. Now you're a different personality, and you're moving into a different personal reality. Now, the next goal would to create opportunities, not create abundance, but create the opportunities for abundance. Okay, but you may have a big client that leaves, and you may get audited by the IRS. Every reason to give up on the opportunities and your vision of abundance. But remember, the personality of abundance is someone that you have to become. That means you would have to overcome loss. You would have to be humble. You have to be able to adapt to the challenges, conditions in your life. You'd have to take some risks and master the risks and manage your time and attention. That's what a personality of abundance does. And in order for you to do that, then, you would have to overcome the personality of lack. That means you'd have to get beyond your fear of loss, argue against possibilities and for limitations, to be uninspired, and have your attention on the worst case scenario. And if you get your behaviors to match your intentions and you begin to create more opportunities in spite of what's going on in your life, then you would be on a different timeline, a different personality, and a different personal reality. And finally, if you wanted to create more revenue, and that was your goal and dream, but you had a legal matter come up, you have a staff member quits, or you get a diagnosis about your health, every reason to give up on your dream, on that personal reality of abundance. But if you remember what the qualities and characteristics of a personality of abundance demonstrates, and you had to become it, you'd have to remind yourself that you'd have to maintain an excellent work ethic independent of what's going on in your life. You'd have to think independently. You'd have to be self-confident. You'd have to be ambitious. And you'd have to stay focused. That is the personality of abundance. And when you take that on, you overcome the personality of lack. You would be overcoming your fear of making mistakes, of living in survival, living in the predictable and unknown, never having enough money, and seeing yourself and the world as unchangeable. So your homework for lesson 4 is about combining your clear intention with elevated emotions. Remember that you wrote down a symbol that represented your intention, but that symbol is sterile without you combining it with the energy or the emotion to keep you inspired, keep you excited about that future. So you have a vision, you have a thought, you have an intention, and that vision, thought, or intention is represented by the symbol that you create. And you associate that symbol with that personal definition of yours of abundance. Now, you have to combine that clear intention with the elevated emotion, the feeling, the energy that's going to drive you. And that emotion is excitement, it's inspiration, it's optimism, it's enthusiasm, it's motivation, it's falling in love with that vision, it's the gratitude, the excitement that comes along with it happening before it actually happens. Combine the clear intention with the elevated emotion, you change your energy, you change your state of being, and that is how you begin to change your life. So your homework then for lesson 4 is reviewing your mission or your purpose. Now here's an example. Your purpose, remember, is ongoing. It's a selfless mission. It's something that drives you that's bigger than you. The example, of course, would be my mission is to create cultural change in businesses and different types of organizations around the world. That could be your mission or your purpose. And what I'm going to ask you to do, though, is I'm going to ask you to abbreviate that and give it a shorter definition. Create cultural change in businesses and organizations. Now, once you have your purpose set in that arrow, you're going to work on 3 goals, 3 different goals. And those goals are designed to keep you on purpose, to let you know that you're headed in the right direction. What does that mean then? It may be, if this was your purpose and mission, you would have to register for a training to become a trainer to create cultural change. That means once you got trained and did the training, you'd have to practice 2 hours a day, twice a week. And if you're able to practice 2 hours a day, twice a week, you could get certified. And if you got certified as a trainer, then you can become a consultant, and then you can train companies and organizations. Now, in order for us to get to these 3 different goals, there's some steps that have to be taken. In other words, it's important for you to get a list of things that you need to do to register for this training. You got to choose the type of training you want to do. You might sign up by a certain time. You may set time off from your work to be able to do it and to book your travels. Okay, that's your to-do list. Those are the choices that you have to make in order for you to register for your training and take the training. Okay, so what about practicing 2 hours a day, twice a week? What do we have to do on our to-do list here? We have to clear our calendar. We have to find a practice partner. To finish in 60 days, I want to finish my training, the whole entire course, be able to do it within 60 days, and I want to record and submit my video for review so I can become a trainer. Now, if I can become a consultant then, and I actually have that goal, I'd have to practice with my family and get feedback from my family to let me know that I'm doing it well. I'd have to record it and promote my skills in some way. I'd have to write blogs so that people know that I'm a trainer, or a blog series, and I'd have to contact organizations and businesses around the world. So in order for us to arrive at our goals, there are to-do lists that we have to do in 3-dimensional reality when we create matter to matter. So your homework for lesson 4 is to write your purpose or mission statement in long form. Once you write it in long form, your next job is to put an abbreviated version right inside the arrow that represents your mission or your purpose, a short version of it. Once you have that, I want you to get very clear on what those goals are. Each goal should be build on the next one, which would build on the next one. And you're going to list those goals and write them out. Once you list those 3 goals and write them out in boxes, then your next step is your to-dos. That means then you have to write down your intention for the day every single day. What's my intention? To keep my energy up, to remember my future, to keep in this emotional state, to stay enthusiastic, to stay inspired, and at the same time get my behaviors to match my intentions, to do the things I need to do, make the choices that I need to make in order to arrive there. So what are your new choices? You'd have to write them down on your to-do list. What are the new things to do? You'd have to write those down. And review that every morning before you start your day. That's your homework. So get clear on your purpose, get clear on your mission, give it a long version and then a short version, put it inside the arrow, get 3 goals, 1, 2, and 3. Each one builds on the next one. Get your to-do list, get your intention for the day, review the choices that you have to make and the things you have to do. And before you start your day, before you do anything, review those choices and the things you have to do along with your intention. If you do that well, then you can write down your intention for the day, 2 or 3 new choices that you'd love to make, and then of 2 or 3 new things that you would have to do. Write them down and then execute in your day so that you get closer towards your goal. In the second module, we're going to talk about creating from the field instead of from matter, what we call 5-dimensional creation. There's a lot of content and a lot of concepts, but we're going to shorten the distance between the thought of what you want and the experience of having it once you understand how to do it.